You know the photograph. We all do. Its image is forever imprinted on our collective memory. It's been called the most significant photograph of the 20th century, if not of all time. Typical of tourists, it was a snapshot, a Kodak moment, the one taken of the whole wide world from the Apollo 8 module on Christmas Eve, 1968. From the time of the mythic stories of Icarus flying fatally close to the sun and the divinely thwarted Tower of Babel, humanity has reached for the heavens, longing to slip the surly bonds of earth. Within living memory of people in this room, we first defied the gravitational pull of our planet, escaping the confines of Earth and gaining for ourselves, for the first time in human history, a God's eye glimpse of our terrestrial home. No generation living before us had ever beheld the awesome sight of our tiny spinning blue-green planet, shrouded in delicate clouds of white and enveloped by the dark depths of space. While scientists and artists had, of course, rendered images of our planet in the centuries before the Apollo missions, only these photographs helped us to see the Earth as it truly is, a planet teeming with life amid the relative solitude of space. In a single snapshot, we see the home of every human being in history, the cradle of our deepest longings and our highest aspirations. Such a view changes things, and it has changed us. In both subtle and not so subtle ways, the journey beyond our own atmosphere has forever altered our understanding of what it means to be citizens on this planet. From space, the borders between our countries and the boundaries between our beliefs all melt away. This iconic image of the globe makes clear, like nothing else, that we are truly all in this together. It puts us in our place and causes us to reevaluate our sometimes overblown sense of self-importance. I think it no coincidence that within 2 decades of that photo being snapped, the principles of Unitarian Universalism were revised to include our 7th principle: respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Indeed, the view of our fragile planet from space has had both ethical and theological implications for us as Unitarians. I'm grateful that ours is and has been a faith flexible enough to integrate our ever-changing understanding of ourselves and our place in the universe. Shortly after the 7th principle was adopted, the cultural sociologist Robert Bellah noted that this principle is the most distinctive and perhaps most promising contribution that Unitarian Universalism has made to the modern world. With our theological emphasis on the here and now, our faith strives to say that our lives and our destiny are tied up in a single garment, as Martin Luther King so often reminded us. The children's version of our 7th principle could not state this fact more clearly. We care for Earth's lifeboat. While there are many rich meanings to be mined from that snapshot of the Earth, I believe that perhaps the most enduring lesson of our journeys into space is to be found, as with all travel, in what it teaches us about ourselves. Astronaut Jim Lovell, who piloted the command module, said, gazing out the window of the spacecraft, that the vast loneliness is awe-inspiring, and it makes you realize what you have just back there on Earth. Or as Dorothy Gale put it in The Wizard of Oz, there is no place like home. And it's true, though we sometimes forget, and though we often fail to treat this home as though our lives depend on it, which they most certainly do. In 1961, when the Unitarians and the Universalists merged into a single association, of which the Canadian Unitarian Council, the CUC, was a part at the time, there was a felt need to establish a set of clear organizing principles. Here's what they came up with. Sit back and see how these words settle on your ears. In accordance with these corporate purposes, the members of the Unitarian Universalist Association, dedicated to the principles of a free faith, unite in seeking, 1, to strengthen one another in a free and disciplined search for truth as the foundation of our religious fellowship. 2, to cherish and spread the universal truths taught by the great prophets and teachers of humanity in every age and tradition, immemorially summarized in the Judeo-Christian heritage as love to God and love to man. 3, to affirm, defend, and promote the supreme worth of every human personality, the dignity of man, and the use of the democratic method in human relationships. 4, to implement our vision of one world by striving for a world community founded on ideals of brotherhood, justice, and peace. 5, to serve the needs of member churches and fellowships, to organize new churches and fellowships, and to extend and strengthen liberal religion. And 6, to encourage cooperation with men of goodwill in every land. By the 1980s, there was a feeling that these words no longer accurately represented the association anymore. And of course, the sound of them is shocking to our present-day sensitivities. It should come as no surprise that women led the way to bringing about reform, especially given the gendered and sexist language that was so common at the time. A major revision was undertaken in the early 1980s, resulting in 1985 in a new statement of 6 principles, which with almost completely new wording carried forward the concepts of the earlier principles. These are the principles that we know today. The process was long and complicated, but it involved grassroots input and multiple revisions before being voted on at successive General Assemblies. It was an intentional and inclusive process. And in the end, the principles were overwhelmingly adopted and with only one single dissenting vote. In 1987, a new principle, the 7th, was added, this time recognizing the interdependent web of life of which we are a part. And at the same time, earth-based traditions were added as a source that informs our faith, alongside the authority of personal experience, ethical teachings, the insights of modern science, the historical religions from which we descend, as well as the wisdom of the world's religions. As most of you are well aware, in recent years, UUs have been in the process of adding an 8th principle, focused on working for racial justice and against systemic oppressions of all kinds. This principle was adopted in Canada by the CUC in 2021. The UUA itself has debated adding a similar 8th principle, while many of the individual congregations there have already adopted a version of the principle as their own, and such is the freedom exercised by individual congregations in our associations. In response to this debate and others concerning the 5th principle, which was meant to revisit how inclusive our democratic processes actually are, and the 7th principle, looking to amend it to expand its scope, the board of the UUA established a task force to explore whether a new rethink of the 7 principles was warranted. This launched a multi-year process to explore revisions to Article 2 of the UUA's bylaws, which contains the 7 principles. Now, it should be noted that these same bylaws call for a reevaluation of this article every 15 years, something that was disregarded. This regular review hasn't taken place now in over a generation, so it is more than timely that the UU undertakes this process now. While the UUA process has unfolded over several years and has involved consultations and surveys and revisions based on input from thousands of people, there is still some anxiety about what these proposed changes will mean for the UUA and, in the Canadian context, for us here in Canada. While we and the congregations of the CUC form a separate denomination and did so intentionally more than 2 decades ago, we are also deeply influenced by the actions of the UUA. It's a bit of the classic elephant-mouse problem. in terms of difference in size between the US and Canada. But a more apt metaphor would actually be something like an elephant and an ant. The UUA is roughly 47 times the size of the CUC in terms of members. And the role they take in publishing materials like our hymnals that speak to UUs has an outsized influence on us here. Which is to say that there is reason that we will want to remain curious about what the UUA is doing and how the process unfolds. What they are proposing is, I think, exciting in many ways. They are considering a shift to an articulation of 6 core values, which hopefully will be easier to recall and to convey to others. These are interdependence, justice, equity, generosity, transformation, and pluralism. Each of these values is given a more expansive description. The draft for the one for interdependence reads as follows: we honor the interdependent web of all existence. We covenant to cherish earth and all beings by creating and nurturing relationships of care and respect. With humility and reverence, we acknowledge our place in the great web of life, and we work to repair harm and damaged relationships. All of this is still being revised as input pours in. I'm not even sure that what I just shared with you is the latest language. Such is life in what we call a living tradition. There are many people I know, trust, and respect who are engaged in leading this work. They are, in my view, doing so with openness, commitment, and great care. So I am very curious to see what finally emerges. Because I have, for a while, been feeling that a new and different understanding of ourselves is seeking fresh expression. While all of this works its way through, there are many who are understandably anxious. And some are concerned about what might be lost in the process, whether the principles that we know will fade away, whether key concepts will fall out of favor or completely disappear. I appreciate those concerns. But here's the thing. I'm not sure these revisions are going far enough. I welcome a regular assessment of our statements of faith, these ways that we find to give voice to our deepest commitments. But if I were in charge, which obviously enough I am not least that I'm a Canadian UU and not part of the UUA, I would want to do even more to signify to our radical interdependence on this planet that it is the starting place of everything that we have to say, all of our commitments to one another and the wider world, and everything that we aspire to be and become. Life as we know it hinges on respect for our place in this world, on whether this earth, this lifeboat of ours, remains a viable planet to sustain life for generations still to come. I say this, of course, because we are living in peril of destroying that viability for life on this planet. And I say this because I believe that the only path to making meaningful change that truly upholds and sustains life comes through inculcating a deep and adoring reverence for the earth in every human heart. We have a very long way to go. I don't know about you, but my heart is not fully there. Not in the way that it needs to be, not in the way that I long for it to be. I don't think that I am alone in this. I sense this is true for many of us. And it's not just about recycling more or flying less often. It can't merely be about personal choices, though important, in the face of the self-destructive ways that humankind has collectively structured our modern world. I think that real change has to come from a deeper place, a place grounded, to echo the meditation words that Margaret shared earlier, in a felt dependence on and a felt connection to this good green earth. How we go about that, how we get there, is the pertinent and urgent question. And this brings me to Braiding Sweetgrass, that stunningly beautiful book by Robin Wall Kimmerer of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation in present-day Oklahoma. There is, some would say, a risk in overly romanticizing the relationship indigenous peoples have with the land. I think the greater risk, though, is in not seeking to learn the wisdom that they are willing to share with the rest of us living in this world that is so out of balance. So much of that wisdom is found in Kimmerer's book. It is at once simple and accessible, and given the state of things, radical. How might our world be transformed or restored if we were to embrace principles of faith akin to what Kimmerer and others call the honorable harvest, a practice both ancient and urgent that she says applies to every exchange between people and the earth? Its protocol is not written down, she writes, but if it were, it would look something like this. Ask permission of the ones whose lives you seek. Abide by the answer. Never take the first, never take the last. Harvest in a way that minimizes harm. Take only what you need and leave some for others. Use everything that you take. Take only that which is given to you. Share it as the earth has shared with you. Be grateful. Reciprocate the gift. Sustain the ones who sustain you, and the earth will last forever. Friends, the earth will last forever, or at least until the sun burns out. The question is how long life will endure. And the answer hinges on whether human hearts can be turned to truly reverence the gifts that we have been given. Paraphrasing the poet, we have only begun to love the earth. We have only begun to imagine the fullness of life. We have only begun to envision how it might be to live as siblings with beast and flower and not as oppressors. We have only begun to know the power that is in us if we would join our solitudes in the communion of struggle. For so much is unfolding that must complete its gesture. So much is in bud, and indeed it is.